right, welcome back, everyone. The Committee on Budget is reconvened. It's 12:37 p.m. We're going to proceed now with the remainder of our budget review agenda today for informational briefing. The next department is the Department of Budget and Fiscal Services. While they get ready, I want to acknowledge here in the chamber, Councilmember Tupola, Councilmember Kia'aina, Councilmember Wire, as well as Councilmember Cordero participating remotely. We also have Councilmember Tolba. Before we proceed with the department, I do just want to remind everyone we do have the opportunity to submit detailed questions in writing, for which we will get detailed responses from the departments. And so if we can contain our questions to matters pertaining directly to the department's operations, that would help to expedite things for the remainder of this afternoon. All right, turning it now over to the Director of Budget and Fiscal Services.
Okay, good afternoon, Budget Chair Dos Santos Tam, Honorable Council members. Thank you for the time for the Department of Budget Fiscal Services to present its proposed budget for fiscal year 2026. I'd like to thank all of our division chiefs who are here. Because of time, I'm not going to call them out by name, but they all support getting in the budget numbers and putting things together, and here we are right now. So we'll go over the highlights. I know there's not a lot of time, so we'll go right into it. I think for Budget and Fiscal Services, the key goal for the upcoming year is to work towards improving our capacity to process things efficiently and to better meet the needs of all of our communities and to support the departments that we provide services to. With regard to the first slide that you're looking at, covering our overall operating budget proposal for 26, keep in mind that this excludes the Liquor Commission. As the Liquor Commission, while administratively under BFS, will be doing their own presentation, I believe, tomorrow. As we go to slide 2, want to point out that you'll see increases in salaries and current expenses. We're going to break that down over the next several slides. Break them down by BFS division to explain why those costs are going up. And again, at a very high level, all of it is due to improving service through better capacity to provide such. Excluding the Liquor Commission, roughly 85% of BFS's budget is from the general fund, 9% from federal funds, and 6% from other special funds. So we'll move on. With regard to budget highlights, I want to start with the administration, which is essentially Carrie and I, Jennifer Bishop here, our Administrative Services Officer. We have our two private secretaries and a clerical, office clerical. What we're adding to the budget this year that wasn't in last year's budget is an appropriation proposal for the Transit Construction Mitigation Fund of $300,000. And that fund, as you recall, was established by ordinance, by Council, to help mitigate the impact of rail construction currently along Dillingham Boulevard. So we can have more discussion on that at the end of the presentation. With regard to Accounting and Fiscal Services, that division is looking at more support for Work Hawaii based on formulas that we have to follow in terms of administrative costs that can be reimbursed for the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act with the oversight under the Oahu Workforce Development Board. We need to supplement funding to process, review documentation, process reimbursements for that program, and we're asking for some support to do that better. With regard to Accounting and Fiscal Services, we also need to do a space study and assess furniture disposal and replacement so that we have more equitable spacing in our offices, and we have supervisors and subordinates together in the same area as opposed to being split apart and put in different parts of our offices that create operational inefficiencies and many inequities because we have some folks that are together and we have other units that are not, and they're disaggregated in different parts of the office space. Going to slide 4, purchasing. This is probably the largest one. As you all know, we had embarked on a purchase improvement initiative back in the summer of 2025. We started back in July, I believe, and we involved some of the major departments that are larger and or have more complex purchase and contract requirements, like the Department of Design and Construction, the Department of Environmental Services, E&V, the Department of Transit Services, Parks and Recreation, and the like. So there were about 5 departments involved, and we're forging ahead to improve service through our procurement division, and as a result, we're looking for 10 additional FTE positions. We're in the process of doing a reorg to form a new section to alleviate the amount of purchase and contract actions that each of the buyers handle. We're currently at about 80 a year, which is a lot compared to our state of Hawaii colleagues, which have much lower volume that they have to handle. We're looking at reducing the volume levels from 80 on average to 60. So we're looking at adding the section that will require 7 FTEs. We're looking at adding a executive assistant to assist the current division chief and assistant division chief in strategic type activities, training. We want to do more training, not only within our department, but at the agencies, so the entire workflow goes smoother, and there's less inefficient time spent going back and forth. And we want to introduce a procurement clerk as well that would make up the 10 staff. Also helping the contract review process and ensuring that the work gets done properly. We currently have 1 procurement officer. We're suggesting that we add an additional one. So take a step back. Those adds, the new section, the clerk, the new procurement officer, and at the higher level, the policy level, a new EA to oversee strategic initiatives are being requested to help procurement provide better service overall to all city agencies. Within the purchasing division ask, we're also asking for new supplies for staff, i.e. many have very dated workstations to do their work and not efficient that way. They need upgrades in computers and software. Such that we have that ask for almost $57,000. With regard to a space study similar to accounting and fiscal, purchasing is smaller in terms of department size, but we'd like to do the same thing, do a space study to analyze how to better allocate space to all of our staff for equitable working conditions, and with that, determine which furniture would need to be disposed of and replaced. With regard to internal training, we believe that we need help from outside training resources, such that we're asking for $19,500 from the National Institute of Government Purchasing for in-house training, train the trainer, so to speak. We will either send away or perhaps, if possible, bring instructors in, but try to do it as efficiently as possible and have more senior staff trained. They can come back and train the newer staff, less experienced staff going forward. With regard to consulting services, one of the outcomes of the procurement initiative that I mentioned earlier was a finding that we really needed to upgrade or do a study to upgrade our systems. We currently work off of a CGI system, which is, or platform, which is a part of our ERP platform that also serves accounting, payroll, human resources, and budgeting. But we feel that we probably are not being as efficient with what we have now. So we're proposing that we do an end-to-end procurement process improvement study through the use of a consultant to determine if and how we can improve our systems and work processes, workflows, and make improvements going forward. So this would be an initial spend for this year based on talking to the Harvard Bloomberg group. There was another city that probably committed to about 3 years of this amount, plus systems and software that they acquired to improve their purchasing process. But this is something we want to put out there because we feel that to serve all of our agencies better, this is something that's truly needed. Slide 5. With regard to internal control, we've made great strides in our internal control division. First of all, when Carrie and I started, there was one FTE, our administrator for that division. Through his hard work, we have now hired 5 full-time. We actually have a supervisor. We have 1 person promoted to supervisor, and we have 4 internal audit analysts that are doing a great job. And we feel that there's opportunity for continued improvement, and we're asking for $5,000 for certified fraud and examiner training and resources. It looks like we have the possibility of getting 2 of the staff certified as a fraud examiner, which will be, I think, important based on the OIG and other audits that are being started by the federal agencies. Treasury Division, we're continuing to increase parcel count that has to be serviced with regard to real property taxes. We also are being required to get more involved in helping other agencies collect their billings. So volume is increasing. We're going to increase under the tax relief section. We're going to increase the income limit for the real property tax credit. Therefore, we're going to need more staffing to process all of the applications and paperwork coming in to appropriately move forward with collections and the tax credit and further support to other departments. So we're asking for 6 additional FTE at $290,000. That would be spread across the real property tax collection unit, the real property tax relief unit, and the miscellaneous receivables unit that are under the Treasury Division. We feel it's very much needed, along with $38,000 for desks, chairs, and computers that have to be replaced. So we ask for your support there. With regard to slide 6, BFS does have vacancies. As you can see in slide 6, we've made improvement. We've gone from 67 to 59. 59 is actually closer to today. We actually had 67 at the 2/1 cutoff date for the vacancy report. Since February 1st, we're going to hire 16, and we're going to lose 8, unfortunately. But that's the challenge that we have in front of us. We're going to continue to fill with urgency. At the same time, we understand that our retirements and employees that transfer out of the city or move to a different department in some cases are going to continue to happen. But we're going to continue to forge ahead there. Our goal is to fill the remaining 59 positions, 44 during the rest of this year. We have really good momentum currently. We're going to fill in 10 more next year. And there are 5 that will not be filled. They're not funded. The counts here excludes deactivated positions. So we ask for your kukua with regard to our vacancies and our need to maintain our dollars so that we can hire expeditiously. With regard to slide 7, with regard to department overtime, as you can see, overtime depends on division or area. With regard to BFS, if you look at the funding source, most of our funding of overtime is from the general fund, and then secondly, we have funding from the sewer fund. But if you go to the next slide, slide number 8, you'll see that by activity or division, the overtime varies. 2 of the bigger ones with accounting and fiscal services. We have special projects, fiscal year reporting, increased grant reporting because agencies are continuing to seek grants, federal single audit research, and the need to meet Section 8 reporting requirements and rent payment deadlines. All of that takes extra time. And as a result, we have staff that are expending significant overtime there. And you can see it's over 900 hours. The next department, I won't go over all of them, real property, with regard to our real property assessment division, they are processing currently on an annual basis thousands of tax relief program applications, and as well as updating thousands of ownership records, especially in a short time that intensifies as we approach the assessment date every year, which is December 15th. Because we are short-staffed there, and we need to work on filling positions, we have the higher amount of overtime there, about 1,400 hours. And we fully understand that we need to fill positions to reduce the overtime, and we're keeping an eye on that. Slide number 9. Okay, slide 9, change of pace here, going from personnel to the financial statements. Slide 9 documents and reports on all of the revenues that fall under the responsibility of budget and fiscal services. We have real property taxes first. And we're comparing, by the way, against updated estimates of where we think we're going to end up. It's not the adopted budget amount for FY25, but we have real property tax. We're looking at a change of almost $41 million, increase of 2.35%. And the increase is essentially the same as what was reported against the adopted number when we did the administrative overview. We have the public service company tax, which is trending up at about nearly 5%, and the county TAT, which on an estimated basis, it looks like we're going to end up at $105 million. We, at the time of the budget, budgeted 108, but that's sort of subject to a little uncertainty going forward because of what's going on up in Washington, D.C. The rest of the numbers are pretty consistent. The investment pool is really interesting. The trend now looks like we're going to end up well over $100 million in investment income. A lot of that is due to the higher interest rates that the investments were bought at. Those investments are currently expiring because we typically invest on the shorter term, and more of the investments as we go into next year will be at the lower interest rates currently. It's hard to tell right now where the interest rates will go, but currently, compared to a year ago, interest rates are much lower for shorter-term investments. Slide 10, with regard to federal funding received by the various divisions of BFS by department. We give you a breakdown of the 3 federal departments that we receive funding from, and we're going to go in more detail in the next slide. So what we wanted to share is that with regard to federal funding by activity, we have about a total of $730,000 received that are projected to be received in the administration. Most of that is tied to the Oahu Workforce Development Board that we talked about earlier. We're a sub-grantee with the State Department of Labor and Industrial Relations. Currently, Workforce Development Division, soon to be Workforce Development Council. The monies will pass through, but we receive monies from that entity. We currently only have 2 FTE filled. We're working to fill 2 more to get it to 4 filled, but getting to 7 is questionable. We're going to take a look at what our needs are after filling the 2 that we're targeting to get to our count of 4. Then under accounting and fiscal services, we receive a total of just under $700,000 again, $678,000 to be exact. All of the funding relates to community services, and currently we have 8 positions filled there. Again, these are all federally funded positions that we currently staff to support Department of Community Services and the fiscal end processing that they need to make reimbursements, to get it processed, and to also provide oversight support to DCS and the nonprofits we work with. Slide number 12, federal funds by activity again. This shows the breakdown with regard to the 13 positions that we have for our fiscal administrative division, which is made up of the federal grants unit, and we currently have 8 of those positions filled. Just a little more detail from the prior slide. We are working hard to fill those positions that are federally funded. The challenge has been a combination of pay and finding parking for the people that we seek to hire. Slide 13 is the last slide containing BFS's capital budget for fiscal year 26. Essentially, most of those items are the same as last year in terms of amount. The amount that we contribute per the full funding grant agreement for rail is currently at $10 million a year. We're going to sell bonds to fund that amount. With regard to the procurement of equipment, we pick up and track all of the equipment purchased by the various departments of the city through our BFS team. And that's something that we track and we account for on behalf of the city. The last item hasn't changed from prior years. It's the project adjustments account used to fund any smaller project costs that exceeded the estimate, so we don't get stuck for small differences. We can pull from that line item if we're off smaller amounts within the capital budget. And with that, I will hold for question. I have my team behind me, our division chiefs who can help respond to any specific questions that you have for BFS's budget request. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, members. Again, we're going to try to focus on BFS's specific operations of the department itself, but we have the opportunity to send questions in writing, and my office will have lots of questions for sure. We'll start from Eva to Diamond Head. Councilmember Tolwa or Vice Chair Nishimoto?
Is it allowable to ask CIP questions?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Director. Couple questions on CIP. First, again, I'm learning. GI is general obligation bonds. Okay, and
Director, if you can turn on, yeah.
General improvement
that's
obligation bonds.
basically
Yeah.
general obligation.
Yes.
So, okay.
Yeah.
And then HI is what?
Highway improvement.
That's federal funds.
No, those are bond funds that are set aside for highway construction projects.
Okay. But it's still city bonds.
City bonds, yes.
Okay. And then
Within CIP.
FG is what?
That's federal monies, federal grant monies that come through. Like, for instance, FTA monies used to subsidize bus purchases.
Okay. You have 10 million for the HART contingency project, right? What exactly is that?
It's, as I mentioned, it was part of our full funding grant agreement. We actually amended the agreement and committed to pay in $214 million to help fund HART construction, the rail construction. So we pay in an installment amount every year. It started a little higher, but we've been at about $10 million, and we have about $50 million to go.
And for the procurement of major equipment, you have 9.2 million, correct? That's mostly for vehicles, yes?
No, it's, we put all of the general cities equipment under our budget. It's been that way from get-go.
So that 9.2, what that's all the CIP then?
All of the CIP for the general government, for equipment purchases.
And that's not for vehicles then? That's just...
Yeah, we...
Can we fund CIP? Can we fund vehicles through CIP?
Yes.
We can.
Certain types of heavy-duty vehicles that we have that 10-year, $60,000 cost threshold that has to be met.
So only heavy equipment vehicles can be funded through CIP?
Yes. Generally speaking, yes, heavy equipment, vehicular equipment.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Okimoto. Councilmember Wire?
Thank you, Chair. And Mahalo, Director, for all the work you're doing. I know that it's a lot. I was just curious in terms of your vacated positions, if it was pretty evenly split between retirements or people transitioning, or if folks seem to be more leaning towards one or the other. Because really with the transitioning, I was just curious where folks are generally going. Are they going to other departments internally or into the private sector? Yeah, any insight you have is welcome.
So with regard to, excuse me, our people leaving BFS, with regard to retirements, we have, during the past year, 5, we had 17 resignations, and this is year to date. 27 internal promotion or movements. So we promote people from within, and it's a plus and a minus. So we create a vacancy, but we fill a vacancy when that happens. So I would have to say that for the most part, if we look at people leaving, most of the vacancies being created are due to internal promotions or movements. If we look at the plus side, there's about a 50-50 split between new hires from outside of the city and internal promotions and movements. So for the year, rounded, we've done about 60 in terms of filling positions. So roughly about half from the outside, half through promotions, either promotions within BFS or from other city departments.
Okay, that's really helpful. Mahalo, and then just the last question I had was, because I think it had come up before if BFS was still in talks or you're contemplating any types of incentives or pay adjustments. Was that an ongoing conversation or is that deferred until?
Well, we're still having conversations on that. Let's talk about purchasing. That's where we have a lot of focus right now. And we have our chief behind me if you have more detailed questions. But with regard to purchasing, we not only have to hire and fill positions, but we have to retain people as well. So we're looking at an incentive type program to help retain people. We're currently in the process of putting that program together. And with regard to hiring, we're looking at hiring hard-to-fill positions using the hiring above minimum pay, recruiting and hiring above minimum pay approach that's allowed. We've talked about supplemental pay increases. We talked about shortage pay, but currently those don't really fit in well with our procurement needs in terms of staffing. So we're primarily looking at the hiring above minimum to fill positions.
Okay, that'll be going into the next fiscal year as well.
Actually, we're working on that now using our savings from vacancies to fund those incentives, if you will, or pay increases as we can make those things happen.
Okay, appreciate that. Don't envy the job of your team and the whole department, and so mahalo for all the work you're doing.
They're all, working really hard, and want to do best for the city and the various agencies that support.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Chair Waters.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Director. How much does your department carry over each year? How much money?
Off the top of my head, and I'll take a look back, about 1.5, right? Chair Waters, we don't have the actual number, but we do have a written request to supplement our submittals to provide the breakdown by department.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say, for all the departments who are coming up next to testify, we're going to be asking the same question.
Yeah, so we'll provide that information for each department. Yeah, but there are lapses by department.
Okay. I know you talked a little bit about vacant positions, but can you also provide a listing of vacant positions by division or by branch?
We did that, right? I believe we provided that. There's a report required that breaks down the vacancies not only by activity but also by age. In terms of how long the position has been vacant. So I believe we provided that.
I was going to also ask, well, why do we do it by activity rather than by department? I know in the next couple of slides you broke it down by activity.
Because, it's the hierarchy, right? So BFS is one of the departments, and then when you go down a level, you have the division or activity. So for us, an activity is, for instance, like treasury, accounting, fiscal, internal control, real property assessment. So we break down at that level as well.
Okay, you call it activity rather than division or branch within your department. But even on the whole citywide level, things are broken down by activity, it seems.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have the same hierarchy for budget purposes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just makes it a little bit more difficult to navigate. But okay, let's talk about purchasing for a minute. How many positions are there currently within that department or division or activity, if you want to call it?
Yeah, purchasing has 34 budgeted positions.
And then
So by adding 10, we're going to go up to 44.
And then how many of the 30 are filled?
I believe 32 now? Okay, so we have 32 filled. They're ahead of me.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, they've been making great strides, and kudos to them. And they're really working hard to build capacity.
I appreciate that very much. But, I don't want to throw any of the other departments under the bus, but they often come to us telling us that there's a holdup within that department and things can't get through. Is that why you're considering a reorganization of some sort?
In expansion, we feel that, and as a part of the procurement improvement initiative, we're looking at where it makes sense to delegate as well. In general, the conclusion was we should continue to remain primarily centralized in terms of procurement, and we need to build capacity. For every procurement action, I've learned over the last 4 years that you have to look at each case or each group of transactions from an agency, because the holdup, the backlog can be due to a multitude of things. Can be of complexity. It can be of where specifications are not clear enough such that the bidders would be able to discern what services or goods they're going to provide. So there's back and forth. It could be just delays due to staffing, even at the agency level. We've had our challenges as well. But when you look at procurement end to end, it's really working closely with the agencies, the offerer or the contractor, to from one end to the other really streamline the process, and that's what we're doing right now. We're looking at the entire process.
Okay, appreciate that. You hinted at the possibility of allowing the departments to have someone who has the same power as one of their purchasing folks. Is that something that is reflected here in your budget?
Well, it is reflected because we're going to start small first. So the initial types of procurement activity that we're going to delegate beyond what we do now is going to be in a smaller area. But going forward, it'll probably expand where it makes sense.
Currently, how does it work? Is there someone from your department assigned to another department for purchasing purposes? Office of Community Services, as an example.
Yeah, so
DCS, Department of Community Services.
we have purchase sections. We have 5 sections: A through E, A, B, C, D, E. E is it traditionally had been set up this way because of the size and complexity of the procurement action. But E is for sewer and water, E&B. They've always had a section assigned solely to E&B. It's also partially funded by E&B. But for the rest of our departments, sections A, B, C, and D share the workload, depending on the needs of the department. One department that has asked for a section assigned to itself has been DDC, Department of Design and Construction. They wanted a section assigned solely to them, but we can't do that right now based on our staffing levels and based on how we're currently set up. So we have DDC allocated by division to different sections.
Could we, in our budget process, put a position or two in DDC to do the purchasing that would be under your supervision?
We get offers all the time from departments to have our staff buyers funded so they can be solely assigned to their department's needs. But based on our size right now, it's not going to be effective doing it that way.
Okay. I can't help but wonder if our carryover is so big because we're not getting the purchasing out,
Yeah,
But maybe it's by design, right? You need that carryover money to balance the budget. So if you slow down purchasing, of course, it's all conjecture, right? But I mean, just from somebody watching from the outside, the carryover is, as you mentioned, Budget Chair, like $753 million, $785 million carryover of unrestricted funds. Is that because they're not getting the money out?
It could be a variety of things. It's not solely due to our procurement function. It's capacity throughout the city. You know, if everyone involved in an action does a better job, everything goes smoother. And you know, I got to be honest. There are some cases where we're at fault, where you know we've held things up. But there are a number of other cases where the agencies could have done better as well. We need to work more cohesively, and you know, we need more capacity to push through the purchases.
Okay, I think that's reasonable. Last two questions. Do you have anyone in your department looking at how to reduce costs for the taxpayer?
You talk about purchasing, they're always looking at reducing costs.
No, just for the taxpayer.
Oh,
Like, how do we reduce costs? Can we reduce their taxes? You know, can we look at how to lower people's property taxes? Other ways of even how to generate revenue so that we can lower taxes. You got anybody in your department, including yourself, who looks at that? Because I haven't seen anything in this budget that reduces cost. In fact, the budget's going up by 8.3%.
The increases.
Sound like a Republican, sorry. But
Don't
really, our
don't be
budget's
like
going
you know
up
who.
by 8.3%, right?
Yeah, but we've broken out why it's going up by 8.3%. There are targeted needs that we would like all of you to approve, council members to approve, because we believe that we can significantly improve the procurement process and help train ourselves better, help train the agencies better to make things better overall.
But okay. But I'll ask the question again, though. Yeah. Are you looking at any way to increase revenue? I think this is asked and answered, but I'll ask it again, without increasing taxes.
We look at that all the time, Chair Waters, and a lot of it is working with the agencies. You know, entry fees, for instance. You can, let's say we look at one of the parks, we want to add an entry fee. You can't just sit somebody on a chair, you know, somewhere at the park to collect the cash or whatever. That way, you need to, there's going to be facilities that have to be put in place and directional signage and things like that so people know where to go to enter and pay their fee. There's a lot that goes into it, and it's not something that happens overnight.
Do you think it'd be worthwhile to include a position or two within your department for somebody to look at exactly how to do that, increase revenues?
I think I agree with you, but I think that type of personnel should be in the operational department because they know the operations best. We can provide the support in terms of helping the department with what they have to procure. And then we can also help on billing and collections. We can provide guidance there. But at the end of the day, that has to be in the department.
And then lastly, you know, I read this weekend that the state is looking at increasing the TAT. Yeah. I'm not sure why they're doing that. I think for climate change and resiliency. What do you think about that? And should we be doing the same?
We can't right now. We're at the we're at the in terms of our authority.
Sorry, we'd be looking at property taxes. Yeah. We'd be increasing property taxes on the hotels. Well, that would be our version.
But for TAT, Chair, we're at the maximum 3% right now allowed by the state. We would have to get statutory change to increase that.
Right, well, they're doing the same thing, right? The TAT is still a tax. If we tax the hotels a little bit more to take care of climate change for cesspool conversion, as an example, for redoing our roads that may be falling into the ocean, things of that nature, right? For beach erosion that we currently do, something of that nature. Would you be in support of that? Or I'm curious why your department doesn't think about these things. It seems that the council is the only one that does that.
No, we're
not
thinking
the
about those
departments.
things all the time as well.
But we don't
It's-
get anything from you folks introduced into legislation. It seems to only be coming from us, not from you. So I'm just curious, that's why. Is it helpful to have someone within your department who thinks about these things?
It's being thought of jointly by the operational department, the managing director's office, and BFS. BFS provides the backbone through which you can collect more revenues, but the operational apparatus needs to be put in place to actually do it.
And the reason I'm asking this, Chair, is because ultimately the taxpayer, the residents are going to end up paying 100% more for their sewer bill. And I'm trying to figure out a way that we can take existing monies and put it towards that. I know we've gone round and round about this. You don't think it's a good idea to use general funds. But I think we really got to do this. This is like a big storm. It's like a typhoon or a hurricane out in the Pacific Ocean that's coming towards us, and people really aren't reacting to it yet until they get that first bill of 9% increase. And then the next year they get 9% more. And then the next year after that they get 9% more, right? People are going to be hurting, and we've got to do something about that now. That's my only point to going through this whole question and answer.
I understand where you're coming from, but like I said last time, in front of us, there's a number of huge liabilities. You know, in addition to wastewater treatment, there's climate change and resiliency. And as you mentioned last time, Chair, collective bargaining, you know, we just started for the next 3 to 4 years, perhaps. So that's going to be, you know, a significant increase in cost. But I still do believe we need to get caught up better on a lot of deferred maintenance. And that's where, you know, that carryover will help. And luckily, once we get deferred maintenance done systematically, you're not going to have to do it for a while. Like for instance, the bridge repair, you know, deferred maintenance for bridge repair is owned by bridges owned by the city. We're going to have to systematically make improvements, replacements as necessary to ensure that we have safe bridges, you know, that we keep open. So that's going to happen, but luckily it's not something recurring. You get it done and you move on to the next one. It's one of those.
No, I understand that. Last question, Budget Chair. So on slide 2, you have a change in salaries of 5.8%. Is that to cover collective bargaining, projected collective bargaining?
We have what we know, you know, in terms of increase that we're going to be putting in, but that amount also covers the asks that we have with regard to, you know, our budget requests. So it includes those asks as well in terms of personnel.
I see.
But yeah.
So it includes the 10 more positions that you're asking about, but so it does or does not include money for collective bargaining?
There's a provisional in the miscellaneous category of the budget bill. If you look at the provision for salary adjustments and vacation, because we're currently in a budget opening and renewal, that amount is much larger than it was in the past. I think it's higher by about $40 million. That's where we have the collective bargaining
Money
covered.
set aside, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Director, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kiana.
I just wanted to say that I think Chair Waters' idea about someone looking at overall government efficiency and ways to raise revenues is a good one. I don't believe it should be solely on the budget department. It actually should be in the managing director's office because, you know, you're quarterbacking the administration, and in quarterbacking it, it's their job to reflect, I feel, the policy proposals that affect the efficiency and the budget of the administration. But I think it's actually a good one and worth considering. Of course, you know, procurement, we all hear from it, and so I fully support what you're trying to achieve here. But I guess I want to drill down more specifically. Should this be included in the budget? Do you already have a game plan, or do you have all your job descriptions? You know, I know that the Director of Human Resources has launched the initiative for federal employees. This is very specific skill set. And I just feel that comparatively to all of the other positions you guys are proposing or all of our vacancies, this is so important because it's hindering the effectiveness and efficiency of the entire city administration. And so what exactly are you guys going to do aggressively to get these positions filled? And what is the highest salary paid again?
So the highest, at the policy level, I mentioned one of the 10 positions will be an EM8 to help,
Okay.
EM5, sorry, EM5.
At what level? There's a beginning and the ending, as I'm finding out because I'm putting in proposals.
We're gonna look at what makes sense, but we're just proposing the entry level for now.
Okay, I would not recommend that because that's 109,000. For something this important, it needs to be at least the mid-level of that EM5. I'm just telling you right now, in order for you to get someone of this competency, it's so critically important. So I just highly recommend that you bump that number up.
Yes, Councilmember, we'll look at it, but we have a very, very strong chief administrator for the division that has those skills you're talking about. We need an additional arm for her to help execute those strategic plans.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Anyway, I just, this is probably the most important thing of our budget, actually, not just for your office, but fully supported, and just hope that we can be making some headway on it because we can't wait. This should have been done yesterday. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you, Budget Chair. Hi, Director Kawano. Thank you for the presentation. I am also glad to hear the updates about the procurement and purchasing updates. Would you be able to share if our software is already up to par, and which are newer software additions that are included in your budget for these new procurement efforts?
Okay, with regard to our current procurement platform, we've done more extensive research with the vendor CGI, including looking at what other governmental entities do, like City of Los Angeles, for instance. And so I can say that based on the base model, based on the base model of the application with regard to the purchasing module, we're essentially doing almost essentially everything that it can do. There are some features that are not being used that we're looking at, that if you want more details, I'll call our purchasing team up if you want the details, or we can meet with you separately. But there are some features that we can add to help improve efficiency. But where we are right now is without substantial development and programming on the platform. We've taken it about as far as we can go. And that is why we want to do the study to take a broader look at what other governments have in terms of procurement systems and software, and make a determination as to whether or not we need to go out and implement something more effective.
In your budget, you do have, oh, sorry, thank you, Director. In your budget, you do have the training for all the staff for procurement updates. And if you were to be doing that training, wouldn't that have been already with a particular program plus software that would be included with it?
Well, the software-related training is essentially that, right? It's tied to the effective use of a particular platform of software. What we're talking about is ongoing training by skilled instructors that can provide not only changes in best practices, but also provide information on directionally where purchasing functions are going, in terms of especially the use of technology. So this training that we're asking for would be something recurring. We currently don't have it. All the training that we do is one-off. We're trying to put something, we're trying to implement a more uniform training program for our staff, which in turn will be used to not only train purchasing staff internally, but also contract administrators at the agency level, and help them to be more effective, and help them do their work more efficiently with us, because we have to work together. So it's not so much tied to a system, but tied to the purchasing process itself, best practices, and directionally where things are going as we go into the future.
Okay, and my next question as it relates to software is the different software systems that you share with other agencies. I know that you mentioned in your first presentation about the whole administration's budget that sometimes it's the agencies that we would have to ask about those specific programs. And so is there a reason why you are utilizing, like, for example, the ESRI or certain tele technologies with DPP? Would it be better based out of DPP's budget versus your budget? And that could possibly free up things for the rest of your budget.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Cordero. What's the tie-in to DPP again?
I just used the shared software example that you have with them, the ESRI, with DPP, and there was another one that I saw here, maybe one of the GISs for DPP. I don't know if you're hosting or paying for the subscription for DPP, or if it's something that you both utilize.
I think okay. So our administrative officer just shared the GIS module. We do have that for mapping in our real property tax assessment division. I know that we share information going back and forth, because we create the tax keys, if you will. And DPP will ask for information on tax keys from us and support. So I don't see that. I mean, we're sharing information, but the GIS that we use is primary to the mapping process for assessment. As we
Okay.
issue out tax keys and things like that.
Okay, I think it's the ESRI with DPP parcels. So I was just wondering if let's say you guys are sharing the same software, if it could just be like the same license or software, so that let's say you have this software in your budget, and then let's say DPP has the same software in their budget. Maybe it wouldn't have to be duplicated across two different agencies if it's shared. So that's what I was just trying to see. And if it can't be shared in that manner, then I mean, I guess it can't be shared, but I was looking to see which type of softwares can hold multiple licenses for different agencies so that we don't have to buy per office and per division. So that was the whole point.
Yeah, our administrator is here. You mentioned ESRI. I don't know very much about the software, but with regard to getting on the same platform, a good example, our ERP platform for accounting does have an accounts receivable module. So we've been working with CGI to determine if all of the different agencies could get on the same platform for accounts receivable, so billing and collecting of fees, service charges, revenues. But that's just something we've started to do recently. So from that standpoint, we're looking at being more efficient and using a similar platform across the city. But specific to your ESRI,
No, it's okay.
if you want
No
to,
worries. No,
we can
submit
reach
that.
out to you later because I don't know much about that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, and I think that would be a very good one to put in writing because it's in great detail. Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you so much, Chair. Aloha, Director. Real quick, I'll make it brief on this. National Institute of Government Purchasing Training. Is this new or you guys have been doing it annually?
It's something that's been in place for years. It's just that we don't have a cohesive program in place. So if we've had training from that organization, it's been one-off. We're proposing standard training every year.
Did you guys go last year?
I don't believe so.
So, as your time as director, has anyone ever attended this?
Well, we did. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
During your time as director, has anyone ever attended this training?
I can ask our purchasing administrator for the details, or you can send it to me in writing as well. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good thing. Of course, we all want to see it. I just wanted to compare if no one's been attending and then we attend, boom, was there a difference, right? I just wanted to know if...
People have attended, but it's been one-off. It hasn't been uniform training from the organization. Yeah.
Understood. And I think to a lot of questions that have already been posed, one of the questions I asked in a previous hearing was about the concessions contracts, because I do believe that, Enterprise Services had about 36 that they needed to get out for different concessions, which would bring in a lot of revenue to the city. But I think in the last years, they were only able to do about 3. Would something like this and your suggestions about procurement help with something like that?
Oh, yeah, sure it will. And, we're actually discussing responsibilities right now with regard to concessions and whether or not it could perhaps be at some point in time a delegation that we pilot with CSD or another department, could be a different department, but we're looking at that. Concession contracts don't really fall under procurement law.
So you're saying that maybe we don't go through that?
So we're looking at perhaps putting the responsibility on a pilot basis on that department where they do more of the work and be more responsible. Our director of DES met with us, and they do have significant concession contracts, but not 36. It's a smaller amount. And in fact, they were going to evaluate whether some of them should continue, whether they needed them to be in place. So there's a process ongoing, but she's right, we can be faster in helping her process renewals.
And then just briefly, you kind of mentioned in regards to Chair Waters' questions about, things that you're foreseeing that we have to prepare for. And one of them you said was infrastructure plans. And earlier, when you presented the overview, the number one focus was strategic investments in infrastructure. And I do believe Councilmember Cordero asked the question, which is, what is our infrastructure plan? So I know that it's kind of scattered throughout the budget, kind of what we're going to do here and there. You mentioned the word bridges. For me specifically, almost all the bridges are DOT bridges in my district that they're repairing. So is there an overall infrastructure plan that we can refer to that's going to kind of show us the priorities that you guys are putting money towards?
I think with regard to infrastructure planning, so if you look at the city, talk about sewer, for instance, they have their plan. they have a plan that they're following in terms of maintenance and capital improvement, but from a strategic standpoint, more from the top, one thing that they're going to have to get better aligned with is housing. So as we roll out the plan to increase affordable housing inventory with mixed uses, as needed, sewer, for instance, will have to work and align their department level plans with the administrations. So if you're talking about that kind of tie-in, yes, there is a plan, but in terms of at a higher level, you know, administrative strategies and priorities, there may need to be more alignment down the road and more of an allocation for instance, TOD, housing around TOD.
Yeah, I did read that. I read the 73-page housing plan, and it did refer a lot to needed infrastructure. So I guess we'll just have to kind of connect the dots between that and maybe what was proposed in the current CIP or what will be released in the current CIP. So thank you, Director. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to round two, I have 4 questions, and then we'll go to a brief second round of questions. First of all, I appreciate that a $10 million provision for federally funded program contingencies has been added to the budget. Do you have a sense of how the administration will determine how these funds will be prioritized? I imagine that we are at risk of losing much more than $10 million of federal funding.
Yeah, you know, there's definitely a lot of uncertainty. So what our managing director's office is in the process of doing, they've already collected information on all of the federally funded grants that provide funding to the various agencies of the city. Our managing director is currently prioritizing all of that grant information based on what he's aware of, and he talks to the congressional team on a regular basis. He's doing outreach with our agencies that have regular discussion with federal agencies, and he's going to prioritize it. But his primary concern now is to protect key positions. So if programs get shut down based on priority, he's going to use that $10 million to cover positions so we can keep programs going. You know, you need people to continue programs. So that's primary in terms of what he's doing right now.
Okay, good to know. Second thing is, throughout the course of many budget hearings preceding my term as budget chair, we've heard of the need to do upgrades to the software that underpins our real property tax payment system. Not just on the collection side, we had a discussion about whether the system could handle quarterly payments or monthly payments, but additionally, through the discussion of the empty homes tax, whether the system can handle multiple exemptions. Is there any money in the FY26 budget to improve software to do either of those functions?
Not yet, not yet. And I think I'm hoping that we can make a determination as we go through the readings as to where we're going to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. Third question. There are 2 different divisions within BFS that have significant budget items for workplace studies, $360,000 for one and $595,000 for another. If you do the math per employee, that's about $8,000 per employee in one of those divisions for their workplace study. And in that same division, we're planning to add 10 new positions. So really that's $36,000 in workplace studies for each new employee on top of the existing workplace. This seems like a lot of money. Can you provide a little bit more context to justify that?
Well, actually, the study is to be so that we can accommodate the 44 if it gets approved. So it's not going to add more cost to the proposal that we have in front of you. It contemplates the approval of 44 positions, and there's not going to be an increment if you add those bodies.
It just seems like a lot for a study per employee to figure out their space requirements. Can't we just put them in an office somewhere?
Well, it's The design component is a smaller fraction. There's going to be some carpentry work. We're going to have to replace furniture and so on and so forth. And we don't have the breakdown right now, but
It would be helpful to get that breakdown.
yeah. Well,
Okay.
we based it on an office move by a different department and adjusted for head count. So we can get you the thought process if you send us
Okay.
in writing what you need.
Thank you. And I did want to ask about the $300,000 to administer the Transit Construction Mitigation Fund. Given that we've set up the portal, why does it cost $300,000 in FY26 to administer it, given that the hard work of setting up the portals?
Oh, that's not to administer it. I'm sorry. That's to provide. That's the funding component. So last year we had $250,000. This year we're asking for $300,000.
I see.
And we may have to tweak the rules to have a wider net, safety net, but we'll see. We're going forward.
Okay, good. And I think we will be working on that soon. Okay, second round of questions. I know Councilmember Okimoto had one. Anyone else? Second round?
Thank you, Chair. Really quick, Director Kawano, following up on I think what Chair Waters and a few of my colleagues have asked, I wanted to go back to purchasing because we talked about that and the training. I wanted to understand when it comes to your personnel being equipped and trained properly, I want to know if there's turnover and if these delays in finishing these procurement or purchasing projects, has it cost the city money because we've either lapsed on missed a contract or it's taking so long that the cost of the original purchase went up? Has that been a factor in when you're dealing with purchasing?
I'm sorry, council member. So I want to rephrase your question. So you're asking if the possible losses from not procuring on time?
Right. Well,
If we're
I'm hearing that
factoring that
purchasing
into-
or delays in purchasing has been an issue in different departments. That's what if I heard correctly. So I'm wondering if that's happening in multiple departments. Have we lost money or lost projects or have things lapsed, or has it impacted us in any way fiscally because we weren't able to have the purchasing or the procurement, whether it's not properly trained or not enough people in the position or one reason or another? Has that been a factor?
Well, I think everything you brought up are factors. I don't think we lose money as a result of our capacity constraints. I think what happens is we don't get things done. We don't get as many things in terms of providing services to the public, in terms of construction, fixing things, the deferred maintenance component I talked about, as we had planned to. And I think what we're trying to do is, get to the right size, get to the right skill sets in purchasing so that we can be more effective in, getting projects done.
In doing so, in the delays, is it at the end having us pay more money, costing us more money? If maybe I'm not saying not losing, but it's taxpayer dollars. So if something's taking longer, we know that the longer things take, the more the end cost ends up being. So I guess that's my question. Do we know how much money is being spent at the end? Are we?
It would take a massive engineering study. Going from COVID to reopening the economy to where we are now with the uncertainty ahead of us, there's all kinds of factors that drive cost up. I have to admit, if we have a procurement delay due to whatever, a delay could cause cost of materials to go up, let's say for a construction project. At the same time, once we're in construction, if we don't stay on schedule and complete the project on time, that also drives up costs. So I'm not trying to skirt the question, but I'm telling you that it's multidimensional. And it's not as simple as because purchasing did this, here's the effect. There are, in terms of cause and effect to cost of services and our construction, there are multiple variables that come into play.
And you mentioned the departments. You said and maybe you can repeat that for me. Working in the individual departments, because I'm guessing in your department, you are working with, again, multiple departments, and they have people in their departments who understand what their projects need, what their equipment's needed. Are you saying that it would be beneficial to have more of that done within the department, and then they come to you to make it a better, more efficient process, or we still do the same thing that we've been doing?
They don't come to me. These sections, if you will, and I mentioned there's 5 of them, they are autonomous. They can do the work on their own. Their work gets reviewed by the procurement officer. We have 1 now. We really need 1 more. We need 2 to improve throughput. And if the 1 person we have is backlogged, our assistant administrator jumps in to help. I don't review procurement actions. I get involved from time to time if there are problems. At the director level, I work with the other director of the other agency. But what we're saying is that we need more capacities to improve our throughput so that procurement actions can be done quicker. They can be touched sooner. They can be done faster. And then with the extra capacity, we can have staff go out to help to train agencies with contract administrators that need more guidance, so that along the way we don't have procurement actions going back and forth between purchasing and the agency.
Right. Do you have any idea of what the backlog looks like right now? With that, you've had 1 currently. The goal is to get another 1. So what, with 1 person in that position, what types of backlog time-wise are we looking at?
So currently, I mentioned earlier, on average, every buyer that we have in our sections handles up to 80 different procurement actions a year. That is not far from being double of what our counterpart in the state does at the department level, because we have buyers that have contacts in the state at the department level, and even at the state procurement office, and the amount of activity that each buyer does is really high, too high. So what we want to do is add more staffing to reduce the amount of actions that a buyer has to work on annually so they can get them done sooner. In terms of the math involved, I think we're going to have to add staff and measure. We have measurements. You can see them in the performance metrics that we have for purchasing. But what we could do is once we have established this new unit or section, we can remeasure ourselves to see how many more actions we're processing and the timeline.
Okay.
We want to reduce the timeline down.
Okay, thank you, Director. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, second round for BFS. Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Director. All right, we're going to move on to the next department, which is the Department of Emergency Management. The Department of Emergency Management's presentation is listed online as Departmental Communication 168. And it's only 5 slides. Okay, please proceed when you're ready.
Good afternoon, committee chair, members of the council. My name is Jennifer Walter. I'm the acting director for the Department of Emergency Management. We are charged with maintaining a coordinated program to prepare for, respond to, recover from, and mitigate against disasters and emergencies. And so you'll see most of our budget is really not just about internal investments, but investing citywide and in the public and increasing our readiness. You'll see on the current slide the changes between FY25 and 26. Overall, there's a slight reduction in our budget. There is a small increase in salary. That's related to some part-time positions we're hoping to establish the next fiscal year, and a salary adjustment for the director and deputy position to create more parity with the other department heads in the city. We have a slight reduction in current expenses, mainly because last year we had a large project programmed that's currently underway that was a one-time cost. So most of the other expenses really revolve around, aside from salaries, the areas that were outlined in our strategic plan. So alert and warning systems, we have funding in there for alert system that's shared by all other agencies. Training and exercise support, particularly this year, we're looking to increase the number of personnel that we have on a part-time basis to staff our EOC. And then public outreach, that's our volunteer program and some part-time community educators we have in the budget.
And before you move on, I want to announce Councilmember Cordero is going to be hopping off online, so we don't need to interrupt the meeting. Please proceed.
Thank you. Next slide. So the next slide shows our vacancies. We currently have one vacancy, and that's the DEM director position, and that should be filled by the end of the fiscal year. Next slide. This shows our overtime budget. We use overtime for emergency operations when something unexpected happens and we have to activate our EOC. A lot of what we support out in the community also happens on nights and weekends, so that's another overtime item that's a big source for us. Federal funding sources are listed on the slide, and we have totals for the last few years. I would say in general, we get most of our grants flow through FEMA that we receive. There are some that are project-based, and that's mainly like the first line item you see there. The example is a project for a mitigation plan update. The rest are usually fairly recurring sources of funding that we get in the department on an annual basis. A couple of those grants, the ones related to Homeland Security, you'll see a citywide total and a DEM total. All of those flow through DEM, but we make the Homeland Security grants available to other city departments, and we retain some funding year to year to support DEM Homeland Security related projects. The department revenue summary, this is related to a fee that the Department of Health charges to facilities that store hazardous materials, and this is passed on to each county to fund activities related to hazardous materials preparedness and education related activities. And that concludes the end of my 5 slides. Thank you.
All right, members, any questions? We're going to go from left to right this time. Councilmember Tupola, then Kiaina.
Thank you so much. It's nice to meet you. Glad to know who's in charge of Department of Emergency Management. I wanted to bring to your attention, and I don't know if there's a budget line item for it. Are you familiar with the emergency access route that we're working on in Makakilo?
Yeah, there's a MOU that's currently with CORE for review with the landowners to allow use of that route.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I was the one that worked on it and kind of put the pieces together. My question was, do you see or foresee, because I've not ever done an emergency access route, do you foresee that we need to have any budget for this, or, and it might not be even be in your department, it might be in DTS, but what is your thoughts?
I'm not aware of any things right now that would be required for that route. I think that could be a conversation we have once the agreement is signed, if there's any sort of signage or things like that. But because it's on private property, it's a little bit tricky, but that would probably be in coordination with other departments rather than something that's on DEM's budget itself.
Understood, yeah. I'll follow up on the timeline for when the MOU will get completed, and then I'll put that meeting together so that I'm aware of what needs to happen for it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councilmember Kiaina.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. How many total positions do you have?
We have 15 and a half civil service employees, and then we do have some grant-funded positions.
Yes, I'm seeing here the 4.5, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, 4. And I do know that the managing director's office is, of course, in contact with the delegation and others, but given the fact that FEMA is being targeted as a potential agency, so that similar to the Department of Education, where everything is handled by the states, I'm just assuming you have your own line of communications with federal folks, the delegation or FEMA or the state HAEMA with regard to what is going on the ground. Can you enlighten me? Because, you know, I just would be very shocked for these agencies to be abolished, but I think the idea would be that all of the funds would just be potentially transferred to the state and local jurisdictions. Are you, what do you know about what is going on? Because you do get, so if you have 15, this is a significant chunk of your staff.
Yeah, it would be a significant chunk of our staff if we lost the grant-funded positions, which are in addition to the 15 and a half. Right now, we have been in consultation with the state to understand what's going on. They're going to a national meeting with other state emergency management leaders, and FEMA will be there, and we hope to have more updates following that. Most of the communication we've gotten so far is about the grants themselves, and these are the non-disaster grants that were listed here. I think a lot of the conversation that's been happening in the media is also related to the disaster grant funding, and that's the money that FEMA pours into jurisdiction once the president has declared a major disaster declaration. And we really haven't heard a lot on that. There have been various conversations over the years, even before this administration, on trying to increase states' ability to participate and pay for some of those costs, but we haven't heard anything specific. All we've heard now is that there might be delays in reimbursement. They're looking at the grants, but we haven't heard anything else.
Okay, apart from the state officials going to these various conferences and stuff, do you have anything built in your budget for you to also be doing all of these type of activities?
Yeah, we usually use our grant funding to go to conferences. So we put money aside in 2 grant programs for our staff to go on conference travel.
I'm talking about you personally.
I try to go, being one deep at the moment. I haven't had the opportunity to this year, but I try to go once a year.
No, I need to let you know the situation is grave.
Yeah. So
I highly recommend comparatively to other agencies, because there's the potential for it to be gone, that you get your own intelligence, because there's a lot going on, and I know the managing director's office is working with everybody, but let me just tell you, it's not good. And a lot of yours is coming directly from FEMA. The CDBG disaster recovery funds are coming from HUD, which is a completely different problem. My worry is that the FEMA direct funds are going to be stopped, yeah? So that's all. I just highly recommend, if it's a time to spend money, spend it. No one's going to question you here, because you need to be proactive, not reactive, and not just rely on the ground intelligence of others, including HAIMA. I think you yourself need to take more of an active role. But anyway, thank you so much. Thank you for helping with the Kaleheo High School retrofitting cost estimates. The state legislators are trying to secure the funding, and I believe they're going for the higher amount to withstand Category 3 hurricane at $12 million. So thank you for working with me, and I look forward to working with you and your team on increased community outreach to our CERT teams. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Wire, Okimoto.
Thank you, Chair, Mahalo, Director, for being here. I think I was mostly curious, similar to Councilmember Kiana's questions, and looking at, given that we know it's also affecting like Homeland Security, we know that the impacts are pretty broad and probably going to increase. Just in terms of whether there's been discussions, if we're looking at the federal funds, on how much of that would be high priority, or anything maybe we should know about these particular uses as we're looking at the small set aside that exists for replacement. I mean, I think emergency management, disaster response is pretty high up there, but just wanted to maybe dive into anything you thought was relevant for these particular activities.
Sure. In terms of the Department of Emergency Management, I think the greatest immediate impact just to our department would be the grant that's called EMPG, the Emergency Management Preparedness Grant. More and more, we've been using that as a source to create positions, mostly kind of entry-level positions into our department. And so there are 4 positions that would be funded by that. And so I think that's my greatest concern from the departmental level. For the Homeland Security grants as a whole, I think that wouldn't be as detrimental to DEM, my one concern is a program that we do that trains first responders and others on incident management. And so there is about $100,000 in there that we use on to do that training. Beyond that, a lot of the others are project-based. And so because they're going to different departments, it might be best for each department to kind of talk about what they had established as priorities and what projects they have out there, because we're really kind of the grant administrator for a lot of the other ones.
Okay, I appreciate that. So just forward thinking, I'm hearing in terms of your particular department, it'd be of course, the position funding, and then the first responder training would be kind of the highest concerns.
Yes, that's correct.
Mahalo, appreciate that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councilmember Okimoto, anything? Committee Vice Chair Nishimoto.
Hi, thank you, Director. Quick question. In your budget highlights, you talk about the 25 personal service contract positions for surge staffing, yeah? And then the 12 for ad hoc trainers. What pot of money do you pay for that out of, in case you're going to use them?
So there is sorry, I'd have to look at the line item. Under salaries, where there's an additional new 2.5 part-time positions. And even though those are kind of added up, the individual part-time positions to equal addition of 2.5 staff. And so there's a line item under salaries.
So those 37 positions, you pay for it out of the 2.5 staff that you have in here. Is that enough?
Yeah, so it would be, it's a little bit complicated. We have $25,000 in our, separate from that, there's about $50,000, which would equal about 24 total positions. Because this is kind of a pilot year for them, what we may do is move over the additional $25,000 that's in other expenses to that to equal the total number. So it does look a bit underfunded if you're just looking at the personnel line item.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, members, anything else? Okay, thank you, Director. All right, next up is the Department of the Prosecuting Attorney, whose presentation is in Departmental Communication 169. We have with us Prosecutor Steve Alm, and then we're going to get his presentation up onto the screen shortly. The right side button. If you could hit the right side button there, there we go. All right.
All right, good afternoon. Chair DeSantos-Tam, members of the committee. I want to thank you first for all of your continuing support for our office and our mission. It is greatly appreciated. Just going through the initial parts for the budget, our budget is about the 29 million. Total positions are down a couple because for victim witness, we've been with the funding, federal and state, and we recognize it's uncertain days, and we'll see how all that works. It's broken out mostly with salaries, current expenses, and what the total is. The 2026 operating budget, again, we're asking for a raise for the deputy prosecutors, and I'll get to that in a minute, and admin and grant-funded salaries for the year. And most of the on general funds, special funds, federal grants, you can see on that first page, and it's on the next page, mostly it's for computer upgrades and maintenance, fringe benefits for the state and federal funded positions. And that's career criminal and victim witness primarily. We've got a 2026 Inclusion of Justice Assistance Grant, and this in large part pays for the office-wide training we do at the end of May. For the last couple of decades, the public defenders would ask the court if they could not be in court for a whole week. And so as a judge, that's just meant we dealt with private attorneys. But when I came into office, we thought we should ask for the same thing. So we have that week out of court. We've been at the convention center the last couple of years, and it's a great opportunity to do office-wide training for all the deputy prosecutors. And when we did it the first time in May of 2021, it was the first office-wide training since 1987. And you need training. There's no way to do this without that. And it's for mostly prosecutors, but also investigators, victim witness counselors, and the like. Okay, budget, specifically for the budget issues. As you can see, we have to cover so many courtrooms every day. That's the real challenge. And you know, you've got 11 circuit courtrooms for felonies. You've got family court for the juvenile offenders. We've got domestic violence misdemeanor. They have to cover several courtrooms every day. And district court, again, is very heavy. Unlike a lot of places on the mainland, we do have courtrooms out in the community, which is really good. Other places try to go to that, and it's already in place here, so that's good. Honolulu has the largest, but you know, Ewa, Kaneohe, Wahiawa, and Waianae all have courtrooms, so it's easier for witnesses and defendants to go to court. With a pie chart, you can see that we continue to handle the bulk of the cases in state court. One of the real advantages we have as an office is, as far as doing jury trials, it's us or the public defenders. There are almost no jury trials done in private practice anymore, which is good for the clients because going to court is expensive. But what that means is young lawyers cannot get any experience in court. So I think we currently have 3 people we've hired in the last year that came from high quality private, one from Denton's, one from Mar Pepper Jones, Cade Shuddy, because they couldn't get into court. We have that as our offer for them, which is very helpful. We are going to be asking, following the pay schedule, we're going to ask for a 5% raise for our deputy prosecutors. And a lot of it is just trying to stay competitive. You can see, and that would raise the minimum salary from $93,000 to $98,000. You can see in the next with the bar graphs, we still are the lowest paid of the government attorneys here, but at least we're closer and we're more competitive, which is really helpful because we can offer, like I say, we can offer the jury trials. No offense to the neighbor islands, but they hardly go to trial. Everything gets settled. It's a different culture. The Attorney General's office don't do very many jury trials. So it's really us and the public defenders, and no offense to them, but we have to put the trial on. We have to get the witnesses. You have to get it all organized. So it's more of a challenge that way. And we are starting Safe and Sound on the west side. We have, we're still going to continue on with the other 3 Weed and Seed sites and with Safe and Sound in Waikiki. And you folks for your respective districts have been great about supporting it. Councilmember Tupola is a fixture on the west side. And I saw her Saturday. She's always there. So anyway, but we will continue on with the others. But one thing that I try to get across, whether we're talking to legislators or talking to folks in the community, is if you ask the average person on the street, is crime up, down, or the same? 99 people out of 100 will say it's up. And the fact is, it's down. All over Oahu, overall, it is down in every category. Even on the west side, it's down in most categories. Murder is up by 10%, it's 9 to 10. They used to have, and that's a serious problem. It's, there used to be 1 or 2 murders a year on the west side. Now it's like 9 or 10, it's just too much. And you've got young kids, you've got ghost guns. The combination of young men especially and guns is a really bad combination. But overall, and that's why whatever the residents are doing, whether it's neighborhood watches, whether it's working with the elected officials, whether it's calling 911, crime is down in virtually every category island-wide, but it's down in almost all those categories on the west side. Now, we've had a few issues that we're going to get to next. Ali'i Place, that's where our building is. And we're asking, as part of our typical budget process, we did have some additions this year, and we went through the budget process with the city, and we were not able to get these asks approved. So the first is, when the Sarah Yarrow driving without license, so a third conviction for driving without license, becomes a Class C felony, we have to make sure we're entering everything in our case tracking system. And just to give you an idea, there are about 180 driving without license cases a week on Oahu. There are a lot of people who are driving without license. And we're watching the statistics, we're seeing how it goes, to see whether a third offense becoming a Class C felony is really going to work as a deterrent. Maybe a mandatory 30 days in jail for a third offense might be more of a deterrent, but we'll be watching that closely. But we're asking for 3 additional clerical workers to do all the inputting and to work at court. HPD has really stepped it up. They're fingerprinting everybody who gets convicted now at the courthouse, because we've learned from the habitual DUI that you need fingerprints. Almost all of the driving without license cases are citations. That means an officer is spending just a few minutes with a driver and then giving them a citation. It's really hard for them to make ID later, and it's a real challenge that way. That's why everybody's getting fingerprinted at court. The second thing we are asking for is to try to expand, have more office space. We have people doubled up in their offices. We are hiring more staff to take care of that. You are well familiar with our paralegal program. But the good news is we've been able to work there's a new owner for Ali'i Place, and I think they've given us a very good offer for essentially half of one of the floors in Ali'i Place. We originally were trying to work with the folks from Hart because they have a space on the ground floor. That offer got withdrawn, but it was twice what we're getting here. This is, I think, is a really good, it's about 7,700 square feet. It's about half of a floor, and that will allow us to spread out the way we really should be. The other thing with the carpet, it is 25 years old, but we've had people tripping on it, parts of it come up, and in any event. And we had a very good meeting with the new DIT director about computer enhancements, and we don't know what that's going to work out. I think he's working with all of the different departments and visiting with people, and so we'll have to see how that shakes out as far as what the cost for that is, but that will be an additional one. So these 3 or 4 are something we hope you can help us out with, so we can deal with what the challenges are. As far as vacancies, let me turn that over to my Chief of Staff, Paul Mao.
Good afternoon, Budget Chair Dos Santos Tam, members of the committee. In viewing the vacant positions, I believe that our department has made significant progress in addressing vacancies. And, every year, I've come up and I've testified before the council around this time to talk about, issues in the past, right? We look at vacancies that have been, more than 10 years, 7 years, 5 years, and every year there's a particular position usually that we speak of, but, I'm proud to report that when I come back each session, to talk about these issues, I can say that the vacancies that were in question, we worked on it, we filled it. So last year, we had a position dealing with a senior clerk in administration, and I detailed out some of our difficulties in recruitment with that. I'm very proud to announce that with the cooperation of DHR, we were able to get the position reclassified. And as a result of it, we found a very highly qualified young lady that has now been in that position. So I'm proud to say that we were able to fill this position. Many of the vacant positions that we have won't be vacant for long. And the reason for that is that with regard to office assistant twos, we typically tend to hire those persons with a contract position. And as it stands now, the next level up above office assistant 2 is legal clerk 1. Once they become eligible, they can apply for that position under city jobs, and they can move from a contract position into a permanent hire, a permanent FTE, and that's what we've been doing. So we do hire people initially as contract, but they don't stay in these contract positions for very long. So, you know, although it shows 34 vacancies, I can tell you right now, last week we had the conclusion of about 2 weeks worth of interviews, and then we hired 8 new people in the OA2. I think we've also had on the previous run, you know, a similar number. So we make steady progress in this area by onboarding and getting new workers. And why it's so critical, misdemeanor traffic, you know, Mr. Alm talked about why we're asking for help, 3 additional positions to address Sarah Yara. It's because we have lost persons in misdemeanor traffic. We lost 6 of our clerical staff within a month. And the reason for that is almost all of them had been working overtime. They worked after hours, they worked on the weekends. And you know, overtime pay is nice, but you can't sustain it, you know, for weeks and months and, you know, it seemingly forever. And you know, it takes a lot of time and effort because of all the procedures and requirements under the law for them to review driving without a license cases. And so why we're asking for, you know, the additional bodies is because we need help. We don't want to continue with overtime. We don't want to burn out the staff. And that's the reason why that request is made. Yes, you know, we were able to hire people to replace the 6 that we lost. But you've lost time, you've lost experience, you've lost, you know, folks that knew what they're doing. We're gonna have to go through a new cycle, you know, of training folks, the replacements. And, you know, that hurts the people that are still there. They gotta carry that lift, right? Overtime, you know, we have a way how we calculate it. That's on that page 21 slide. But when you look at it, should I go one more? In FY26, yeah, you'll notice that in the area of prosecution, the request for prosecution is higher. And the reason why it's higher is because misdemeanor traffic alone, just that one division, I think used up $30,000, you know, worth of overtime. And that's because of the increasing burden that's on them, you know, to handle all of these cases. You know, the volume is high, misdemeanor volume is high. So we're trying to address the overtime issues. One is to increase the overtime budget, but the other is to try to get additional bodies. Federal funds. Well, let's talk a little bit about our federal funds exposure. Yeah, we can get this one. Okay. We have just short of 11 positions that are really affected, that are funded under federal funds. The biggest area, of course, is victim witness. Victim witness has victim witness counselors that are funded under the Victims of Crime Act. This is a very long-running federal program that supports, you know, our victim witness program so that we can have counselors to deal with and help victims of crime. It is impacted, you know, if we're facing, you know, losses from federal funds. So I want to bring that to your attention. I also want to report that I brought this matter to the attention of the state legislature. Every year, you know, we testify before the state legislature because there is a victim witness state program. And that state program has a legislative mandate by the state, you know, in order to fund victim witness. So I feel it's only appropriate to put that on their radar too, right? That, you know, these are the possible exposures that we're facing. because we may need the assistance of the state as well, you know, to fund a state mandated program and support it. Criminal prosecution is also one that it's not, they don't receive federal funds, but they're also a state mandated program. And, you know, we talk about these two sections together, you know, when we testify with the legislature. But really, the one that is impacted is victim witness, and it can affect our ability to service victims of crime. So we can only hope that these funds don't get cut, but in the event that they do, that's what this number is representing. The next slide has it, the totals in the aggregate, and it's, as I said, this is our exposure. Most of it is dealing with, of course, salary, right? You know, of these individuals that are funded under these grant programs. So with that, we're open for questions. Thank you.
Members, any questions? We're going to go from this side to that side. Councilmember Tolba, Budget Vice Chair Nishimoto.
Thank you. I have some questions about your rent.
Okay.
So that's basically the single largest non-salary expense you have, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so it's 2.5 million. That's for the Lee Place office?
Say that again?
The 2.5 million that's in your budget for rent.
Oh, for rent, yeah.
That's for the Ali Place office.
Yes, we only have one office.
Okay, so that has risen significantly.
Mhm.
It was 1.6 roughly in 2023,
Yes.
and it's 2.5 now.
Mhm. Correct.
Is it because you guys expanded, or?
No, we have exactly the same square footage that we've always had. The only time where we're asking for more space is now.
And that got denied in your budget?
Yes.
Okay, but,
Yeah.
so same amount of space, but your budget has risen for rent. Your rent has increased by over 50%.
Correct.
In 2 years.
Yeah, and just so that Department of Land Management negotiates the lease, but keep in mind this: the land on which Ali Place is on.
Yes, I know.
Is city, right?
So I find that kind of ironic that we're spending 2.5 million on rent when the city owns the fee.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Do you know when the lease runs out?
We believe it's 2055.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Okimoto or Wire?
Thank you, Chair. And Mahalo for the presentation and Prosecutor for being here. So just to double check, so the victim witness funds, the VOCA funds, is that the entirety of the victim witness program?
Yes, entirely in victim witness.
Okay. And then, so just to double clarify, so that means there's no general funded positions.
There are. It's victim witness receives funding from a combination. One is VOCA, one is general funds, and the other part is the state program, victim witness program for the state of Hawaii. So the combination of the three.
Okay. So are there, in terms of the breakdown, and I should know this by now, but so are there individual victim witness positions that are funded by multiple sources, or are the positions all broken up by what their funding source is?
No, it gets complicated, I think, if you multi-source an individual. So what happens is, one particular person is probably funded under VOCA, but another worker might be funded under the state, and still another is under, general funds.
Okay. Do you know the breakdown off the top of your head?
No, but I can certainly get that for you, Councilman
Okay.
Noir.
And I appreciate that, because I think that goes into kind of the conversation we're having
Yeah,
about.
we can break that out.
Okay, that would be perfect, because I think it'd be good to talk through that. And then in terms of the items that didn't make it into the budget, I'm just turning to the proper slide, but is it fair to assume they're listed in terms of priority on the slide?
Well, in a way, they're all important, but, you know, with regard to the Sarajevo one, for the reasons that I stated, because of, you know, what's happening to misdemeanor, you know, it's urgent in that sense, right? We need help.
Okay. And yeah, I don't mean to suggest any of them are not important, but with 9 of us too, I
Right.
just wanted to make sure I knew the total request, because totally understand the other ones as well. Mahalo, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Kiaina. Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you so much. Quick question. You know, every year you guys kind of mention the salary deficiencies and the reason why people leave. Seeing as though you guys don't have to go through any salary commission and that you can kind of adjust those pays directly, what is the main reason why all of the pay isn't just directly changed so that you guys are more competitive with every single county and or paid more than other counties?
Well, actually, the range, you know, for deputy pay is set by the salary commission. You know, we don't determine the range for deputy prosecutors.
Is the range not adequate?
You know, it's potentially it's adequate because I think it's just below what the first deputy's pay is. If you go all the way up to the top of the range.
Understood.
But we don't pay to the top of the range. It's what we're trying to do, since a great majority of our people are new, we've been trying to address mostly from the bottom, right? We're increasing the entry-level salary. We've done so, I think, every year that Steve has been here, you know, first and foremost. The other thing is through the office, they progress as they move. Really, you know, maybe it's to address the high cost of living on those islands. I don't know. But they're substantially ahead of us, you know, and it would be hard for us to equal, you know, them. Where we've had our real issues is if Attorney General, for example, gets money from the state, and they did get about $3 million the other year to give to additional pay, that becomes a problem because we don't know about those things necessarily, you know, when we get to, you know, when we're here, where the budget hearing comes after, you know, as part of the state legislative session.
No, I understand. I think what I'm suggesting, because I've heard this multiple years in a row, is that I really just feel like you guys need to just write down exactly what we need to do to make it competitive. If it involves us, we'll do it.
Okay.
If it involves the salary commission, we'll suggest it. Because I think at the end of the day, with the amount of money that is being floated in every single budget cycle, there's plenty enough money to figure out that you guys need more, but you won't get if you don't ask. So
Sure.
I think if you guys ask and you say, this is what we need to do, this is what we're going to move up to, and I would say be bold, you know, ask for the max amount and then see what happens there. I'm saying this because prosecution and putting people and keeping people in jail keeps our communities safe. I don't think
Absolutely.
anyone would disagree. So if you guys can't do your job or you don't have enough people, then all of us are not safe. So we don't want to skimp on this. You know, a lot of times people bring up, oh, we're funding the police, whatever. There's another part of this, right?
Oh, yeah.
The police are doing the enforcement part, but you guys are doing the actual prosecution part. Both of those hand in hand need to happen, or else we are not doing anything for community or public safety. So I would say, instead of, you know, speaking it to us, just write it down. Just say,
Okay.
we're going to reclassify these positions. We're thinking this is a better range. We think that this would happen legislatively, where you guys would have to suggest it. This would happen with salary commission. This is our best suggestion. Because I see a lot of you guys, good prosecutors, working for the AGs now. It's not like we don't work with the attorney generals, but it's hard for me to see so many of these good people leaving the city. We need them, right? And we're the ground level. We're the people where the, you know, rubber hits the road, and we need these guys that are in the trenches with us. But hey, if it's a salary thing, then we have to figure that out, right? And I think based upon our discussions today, it seems like there are ways to figure it out.
Yep. Yeah, we hear you. Thank you for your support on that.
Yeah, of
Really
course,
appreciate it.
always. Just real brief question about safe and sound Waianae or weed and seed or whatnot. Should I, for the prosecutor? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much for always being my community. I appreciate it every time I see you out there. My question is there any specific funding that we need to be putting towards this in order for us to kind of get it off the ground? What is your thoughts?
Well, I think you have identified certain areas
Yes.
for us to hit. Part of it is developing the credibility with the community, which is why we're asking them, we're working with the businesses about prosecuting things, and then hearing it from the community, what they see as well. So we want to hear that first and look at the stuff you've raised, and then think about how how to address all of those things.
Okay, so you don't have any type of idea of a budget that's needed?
Not right now.
Okay, I can work on that. I will say that we have already talked many, many times with all the businesses. The group that was meeting with you, they all met with me, said that they feel like, well, many of them are very busy. They feel like if there's not a clear direction, they don't really know what they're adding to it. So let's just make a clear direction, because I think I'm going to suggest some budget for this so that we can kind of get it up off the ground. I love that you guys have prioritized prosecution. However, if there is no seeding in of programs and there is not a completion of the weed and seed or the safe and sound, then it's no good to us. So I want to make sure to support you fully, not just verbally, but also financially, so that our community can get the full breadth of what could really happen when crime is weeded out and programs are seeded in. So thank you, Prosecutor. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, members, any other questions for the Prosecuting Attorney's Office? Okay, seeing none, thank you. We will move on to the Royal Hawaiian Band, which has their presentation listed as Departmental Communication 170. And then after the Royal Hawaiian Band, we have the Department of the Medical Examiner, whose PowerPoint is Departmental Communication 171, and then Department of Corporation Counsel, Departmental Communication 172. But we have with us the bandmaster of our esteemed Royal Hawaiian Band, Clark Bright. Please proceed.
Aloha. Budget Chair Dos Santos Tem, Vice Chair Nishimoto, Council members, aloha. Mahalo for your genuine love and support of the Royal Hawaiian Band as we promote and foster music, preserve the Hawaiian musical culture, inspire young musicians, and enrich the lives of the people of Hawaii. Our changes to the fiscal year 26 operating budget reflects the budget of $3.4 million being requested. It's an increase of $117,000 from the current 25 fiscal year of $3.3 million. The increases in salaries of $29,800 is mainly due to the collective bargaining agreement. We are asking for an increase in current expenses of $94,000, excuse me, primarily due to the expenses associated with the renovation of our new building at Waikiki Vista. Those include infrastructure replacement of various doors, windows need some treatment, floors, etc. The equipment decrease of $6,300 reflects a lower total cost of the instrument scheduled for replacement for fiscal year 2026. That would be like a tuba and a French horn. And on the next slide, you can see the graph comparison there. The first section of columns is the salaries. That's the $29,000 increase. The next one, current expenses, the increase of $94,000. The next column, the equipment decrease of $6,300, and the total reflecting the 3.4 request, which is about $117,000 of an increase. Once again, the majority is all for salaries. The next slide requests a CIP budget of $150,000. This is to replace our equipment truck that transports the majority of our equipment on a daily basis from job to job. Our present vehicle is 14 years old, and it's beyond the expectancy of a 10-year lifespan. It has unfortunately broken down in the most inopportune times, thus affecting our service to the community. But that is listed under the procurement of major equipment, 1998602 in the FY26 CIP budget. And you can see the estimated lifetime of 10 years and the cost, and it's a replacement. Our vacancies, we're very happy that we've gotten it down now just to one position, one vacancy, and that should be filled by July 1, 2025. Very appreciative of the colleague next to me, Eric Kopp, our assistant administrator, who is in his 37th year as a member of the Royal Hawaiian Band, also our principal horn player. been very instrumental in assisting us with hiring over the past few years 9 full-time musician positions, and since 2021, 4 interdepartmental competitive examination positions. So just 1 vacancy which should be filled. The next slide reflects our overtime. The budgeted overtime hours is 1,600. The source of the funding is the general funds, and that object code is 1102, the non-holiday overtime pay. And the next slide reflects the picture of the Royal Hawaiian Band. This is the picture taken on October 25th, 2024, when we had our grand opening into our now full-time residence of the band room. Adjacent to this band room is our new office spaces, but that picture reflects the very first time we played there as an entire organization, the grand opening celebration. We're now open to questions. Chair.
All right. Members, questions for Royal Hawaiian Bands? Okay, seeing none. I think you're the only department thus far. All right.
Thank you very, very much for your support and love for the band. We appreciate it. Mahalo nui loa.
Thank you. All right, we'll see if there will be any questions for the medical examiner who's next. That's Departmental Communication 171. From trombones to regular bones. Here we go.
So good afternoon. So, okay, please give us some moment. Okay, sorry about the technical difficulty. My name is Masahiko Kobayashi, medical examiner, and I want to present our budget request from the Department of the Medical Examiner. Actually, this year, the biggest difference is here, Dr. Brilland, our deputy chief. So I'm very happy about having her as our team. So the next, please. Okay, so this is our revenue. We have some revenue from autopsy reports and photographs and x-rays, and I don't think there is any change. And next slide, please. Okay, this is our budget request for the salaries and current expenses and equipment. For the salary, there is some increase, including the union negotiated salary increase and critical contract position for autopsy technician, and also budget issues for 3 additional positions I'm going to explain later. And for the current expenses, we have some decrease because we are using some grant funding from the state of Hawaii. And also, we have some requests for the equipment to replace the old equipment. Okay. And these are object codes with major changes. And we have actually cost saving by using the DOH grant, Department of Health grant for toxicology testing. So the medical services are going down, but services for the security guard is going up because of the new contract with increased cost. But this is very critical for our department being in Ibile. Okay, next. So the budget issue is on these three positions. We have been working on kind of reorganization so we can operate efficiently and effectively. And this executive assistant position would help medical examiner and deputy medical examiner because this position can handle high level of management issues. And we usually have to work on, but this position can do that. And next, office assistant. Actually, this position is very important for us because of our kind of nature of business. This position can handle difficult phone calls and visitors, so it's very important. And medical legal investigator 4 is a working supervisor. This position can help a supervising medical legal investigator who has been overwhelmed by a lot of management work. Okay. So I'm very pleased. Our vacancy is just 2 right now. That is down from 7 last year. And so we hired a lot of people. And so, but these 2 positions include forensic pathologist position. We are still working on the hiring. Next, please. We have some overtime because we are operating 24/7. So we also have some kind of holiday overtime pay. And we are requesting $19,000. And federal funds. We actually don't have any federal funds budgeted in our budget, but we still use some federal funding from the state of Hawaii. And we are just kind of acting as a contractor of the state, so we cannot put in our budget. Next. Okay, this is the end of our presentation, but I have to report what happened to our CIP project. So because we have been kind of talking about our CIP project about the CT scanner, so that would kind of help us reduce the number of the autopsy and make much better forensic diagnosis. But we were kind of recently told this project has to be postponed because of the kind of limited capacity of DDC. So we cannot put this year. So hopefully sometime in the future, in near future. Okay, thank you.
Members, any questions for the medical examiner? Councilmember Okimoto.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Dr. Kobayashi. Thank you for giving us the update. I am really pleased to see that you were able to lower your vacancies down from 7 to 2. And you mentioned the 2 has a forensic pathologist position. And the other one is for which position?
Other one is records technician. Actually, we are kind of purposefully keeping this position open so we can reallocate to the supervisor position after the reorganization is kind of approved.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. And want to thank, again, Dr. Brulin for joining the team. I was really glad to meet both of you in my office. And just to follow up on the CIP project that you said is now postponed. So how does that impact what you guys have to do and your capabilities and ability to fulfill your responsibilities?
Yes, so as long as we can keep our staffing level in the forensic pathologist, we are okay. But if anybody leaves, then yeah, it's very difficult. Yeah, but that's always as our department.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, other questions? Okay, I have a few questions. Because the medical examiner's facilities in my district, I wanted to ask about the impact of vandalism and the homeless in the area. Have there been any instances of vandalism to the building, and how has this impacted your operations?
Yes, so actually we have been having some security fence, and the security system, and security guards for a few years. So the number of vandalism is kind of decreased a lot. So, and recently we don't have any major incidents.
Good. What is the timeline for your new generator and then the new refrigeration unit to be connected to the generator?
Yes, so new generator project is supposedly budgeted for next fiscal, FY27. Yes. So then I will request CIP project next year here.
And because, I guess right now, because there's not a new refrigeration unit, you still have an off-site storage contract. How much does that cost every year?
Yes, so it's actually almost $11,000 per month. Yes.
And then you have a new body pickup contract. How has that been performing?
Yes, actually the pickup contract is the same. Actually, so same company. Yes, we have been using. Yes, but the cost is cost went up a little bit last year.
Yeah, I see. Okay, that's it for me. Last call for questions. Okay, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, members, last department for today, Department of Corporation Counsel, which is Departmental Communication 172. And then Ethics Commission is also going to be either part of or immediately thereafter, Departmental Communication 173. Okay, and while we get that PowerPoint up, just a reminder, tomorrow we're going to be starting at 9 a.m. with our first responders, Emergency Services Department, HPD, and HFD, followed by Department of Ocean Safety. I'll also note that the Department of Parks and Recreation was scheduled for tomorrow, but they're going to be moved to Friday as a contingency day as Director Thielen is recovering from a little illness. It'll be followed by Department of Land Management and then Liquor Commission. So that'll be tomorrow, and Vice Chair Nishimoto will be leading much of the first responders briefing tomorrow. All right, we'll turn it over now to our Corporation Counsel, Dana Viola.
Good afternoon, Chair Dos Santos Tem, Vice Chair Nishimoto, and honorable council members. Dana Viola on behalf of the Department of Corporation Counsel. So I'm just going to move right to our pretty straightforward budget. I mean, we have salaries and we have current expenses. Can you move to the next one? I want to focus on the differences from last year. So for our salaries, there's an increase of approximately $454,000. That's representative of what we anticipate to be the increase for as a result of arbitration. So, and normally we have 57 deputy positions, 43 staff, and the deputy's salary, although the salary is not dictated by the collective bargaining agreement, we usually follow in line with that increase. So that's the allotment, 4% increase for salaries. Okay, the current expenses, this shows a reduction primarily because we were appropriated money for our new offices. So just about $987,000. We negotiated for less than that amount, most likely because we negotiated a long-term lease, which is contingent upon the appropriation each year. So we got a little bit of a reduction from what we had originally anticipated it would cost. So, but we have a reduction of $97,000 from the original appropriated rental amount, but we had an increase in court reporter fees, an increase in online research services because we had to renegotiate that contract, and also an increase or just a new cost for internet services at our new location. So the balance is not $97,000, but with the additional expenses, it came up to about $48,000, which was the difference, which is a deficit. This next slide indicates our vacant positions. It indicates we have 18 vacancies. That would be 7 deputy positions and 11 staff members, but since those numbers were reported, we hired 3 new deputies, so we have 4 vacancies, and we also are in the process of hiring 2 new staff members, so it's 11, more like 9. So there's a reduction from 18 to approximately 13, and we anticipate that we'll fill additional positions. The next slide indicates our anticipated overtime. This is usually for staff in preparing for trial. We did an approximation based on the years past, and that would account for the number that we project of 3,800. The last slide, I think this is always your favorite, Chair, is our judgment and losses. We were appropriated $9.5 million last year. When going into last year, we had, I think, appropriation was $20 million. We spent down to our anticipated that we'd have about $2.8 million left. This year, with what we've expended so far, is in addition to what we anticipate, we'll close out or settle before the end of the year. It's going to be more like 12,000. I'm sorry, not 12,000, 12 million. So I have a little more than we had last year. It fluctuates every year. We anticipate next year is going to be a tough year. We have a lot of pretty large cases that have not resolved themselves and which we anticipate may settle or go to trial next year. So we don't recommend a reduction from the 9.5 that was appropriated last year. That's why we're sticking with the 9.5 this year. Right now, I had the deputies do an assessment of what they think would be worst case scenario, and we're more than double this amount. So I think this is a real safe figure for us, and so I recommend that we stick with that number.
You mean 19.5?
19.5. Did I say 9.5? 19.5.
We can make it 9.5 if you want.
19.5, sorry. So that's my presentation. I'm open to any questions.
All right, members, questions for Corporation Counsel. Councilmember Okimoto.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon.
Good
Just
afternoon.
really quickly, in this amount, when we have the provisions for judgment, settlements, and losses, the bulk of this is spent in which part? Is it settling? And are we expending most of it? I know this is the projector for this coming year, but in the last fiscal year and years in the past, where are most of the provisions spent?
So most of it is usually spent on settlements because that's the nature of litigation. So the majority of the cases that we have to deal with, a very small percentage, and this is common for all litigation, not only for the city, that a very small percentage will actually go to trial. So the majority of the JNL is for the settlements.
Do you have a 90% to 10% or?
I can give you the breakdown.
Okay, I was just curious.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Vice Chair Nishimoto.
Thank you. I have a question about consultant services, that line item.
Yes.
What is that?
That is for our outside counsel.
Okay.
So
it's 3.2 million,
yes.
roughly.
Yeah.
It was 0 in 24. And then it was 437,000 in 23. Is that correct? It's program ID 3004.
3004. So, why is this wrong? Yeah. Hold on, I'm just gonna ask one question to my staff.
It's on page 72 of the packet.
So she just clarified, because there definitely wasn't a zero expenditure in 2024. It was expended in the other categories, medical services, other professional services. It's broken down for our consultants as well as experts, as well as our outside counsel.
So how do you decide which bucket you put it in then?
It's based on the services that we would contract.
So in 24, you had no outside counsel services? You only had medical experts?
So that's consultant services. So the attorney's fees would be the bulk of it. That's the 1.6. So that's the outside counsel services. And then so that in 2024, we did have consultant fees.
Okay. Is there a reason why it's jumped up so much?
It jumped up from,
It jumped up from 437,000 in
so
23.
so that is only for a consultant, right? So consultant services, it really depends on what kind of trials we have. So the total should not be too much of a difference because we don't have a change from the prior year in the total services expended.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Members, other questions? Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. I was just curious, and mahalo, Corporation Counsel for being here.
Good afternoon.
So if the city recovers on a lawsuit, does that go into the judgment, settlements, and losses?
Well, we don't normally initiate lawsuits. Whenever we do that, we'd have to get council approval, so it's not a usual practice. So if we were to, initiate a lawsuit and sue, then that wouldn't come out of judgment and losses, because those essentially would be our expenditures.
Yeah.
So that would, go to the general fund, or, it'd be a different allocation.
Okay, so you can't count on that being
No, that wouldn't,
replacing.
that wouldn't affect our JNL.
Okay, because I'm just wondering, do we expect, given the Supreme Court ruling, any settlement in the Sunoco or the fossil fuel industry litigation, or is that just going to be going on for years?
I'm sorry, I just missed what litigation?
The suit that's going on against the fossil fuel industry for the
Climate change lawsuit?
climate change
Yeah,
lawsuit.
so that would depend, it wouldn't go into the JNL. So
Okay.
that's for payment. And so it would be in a different category.
I was just curious, are we expecting any type of settlement discussions given the recent Supreme Court ruling, or is it just gonna keep going?
Well, the recent Supreme Court decision essentially allowed us to continue with the lawsuit.
Yeah.
So, the settlement is not, it's not, as far as I know, there's not an impending settlement. That doesn't mean that it couldn't be negotiated, but the Supreme Court just allowed us to continue with the litigation.
Yeah. Okay. Mahalo. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Members, other questions? Okay, I do have a question about your rent. I know that because of the situation downstairs, you guys are in a different location and will be for some time. I noticed that the rent cost went down from FY25 to FY26. Can you touch upon that? First question.
Okay.
And the second question is, because there's many different divisions within Corporation Counsel, is it possible to cite one of the smaller divisions in an existing city facility to reduce the rent cost?
So, first question. So we got an appropriation for an estimate of how much we would need for downtown space. And we were able to negotiate because we negotiated a longer term lease. So we negotiated less than what we anticipated we needed. So that would account for the reduction. And we have the rent set for the 5-year term. However, what may be still changing would be the common area maintenance, which is really not something we can control year to year. So regarding splitting up the office, That was something that we considered because we do have a small contingent that is currently in this building. But it's about 7 deputies and about maybe 3 or 4 staff. It's really a small percentage of our overall office. It would be really hard. And what we discovered during this period where we were all, basically spread on different areas and a lot of us were teleworking, that it's really hard to operate as an office. A lot of what we do requires the deputies to work with other deputies and also to work with staff. And so I made the decision to bring everybody with us, and that would only be 10% of our office, so that we would all be able to function as a whole department. It's much more productive.
Okay, good. And then my second question was, there's Corporation Counsel is in charge of litigation with respect to liquor law violations.
I'm sorry?
With respect to liquor law violations, I see that the litigation division pursues these.
So we are split between our counseling and drafting section, which handles litigation that emerge out of the departments, and then our litigation section, which we deal with, specific lawsuits that sue the city and departments and employees as well. But so usually the counseling and drafting will be advising the different departments. The lawsuits that emerge from the advice that they're providing to the departments, they'll handle, but it's much less than the litigation division. Litigation doesn't do advice and consent. They do solely litigation. So they'll handle the HBD cases. They're going to have the trip and fall cases. They're going to handle civil rights litigation. That's what it'll stay in that division.
Okay, I see. That provides a little clarity. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring up the Ethics Commission, our last presentation of the day. And again, for members of the public who may be following along, this is Departmental Communication 173 for the Ethics Commission. All right, and if you could hit the right side button on there we go.
More complicated than going to trial. My name is Shelton Jamon. I'm the chair of the Ethics Commission, and I just want to say a few words. Mainly, thank you very much, and I hope you approve the budget so we can make this short and sweet, but I appreciate your attention. And today, Jan will be presenting the budget, and I'm just here to support her. Thank you.
Glad to have you.
Thank you, Chair.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. The Ethics Commission has a very small budget and hence a very short presentation. But I do thank the Chair of the Commission, Chair Jamon, for being here to support our efforts. The Commission has always been very involved with our budget, and as small as we are, we have grown from once upon a time a staff of 4 to now 11 full-time employees. So the support of the Commission has been key in our budget requests. Our first slide has to do with comparisons of expenditures by type, fiscal year 25 to 26. As you can see, just a minute, we're trying to get the presentation up. Thank you. I believe our slides are now up. You'll see that our budget is primarily salaries. Our current expenses really haven't changed over the years. We, like all of the other attorney agencies, are trying to keep pace with each other so that we can attract and retain the right staff. We have very specific types of positions that provide services to all of you, actually, and thank you very much for always reaching out to our office on requests for advice and other kinds of inquiries. We also have collective bargaining increases that would be factored in separately. And the only current expense increase that we're asking for is for a commissioner travel to be able to attend a national conference on the mainland. It's very difficult to get specific ethics training here in Hawaii. And so the national conference, which is for the Conference on Governmental Ethics Laws, is one of the few places that you can get governmental ethics training. The other states, as well as the municipalities, send representatives, and there is usually a very strong discourse in exchange of ideas, as well as sort of looking at each other and what we can learn from each other. Our next slide shows our organizational chart. We're continuing to right-size the agency, and we're working currently on redrafting PDs to make sure that we have the right staff in the right places. Finally, the staff on funded vacancies. We did have one vacancy at the time that the vacancy report was pulled. We're happy to report that we have filled that vacancy, and behind me is sitting Elmira Sang. She is our new deputy, Assistant Executive Director and Legal Counsel. She comes to us from the Department of the Attorney General, so with years and years of experience in both the private as well as public sectors. And that's it for us. We have distributed to you our annual report, which our thanks go to the Department of Customer Services Design and Print Center. They do a fantastic job on this report. The pull-out page is Ethics by the Numbers. One side shows you a snapshot of the kinds of works that we do in a given year. And then we've added something else on the back this time, and that's the outreach and education. We do try to set up pop-up tables, other kinds of outreach events, so that city employees and officers can put names to faces. We don't want to be a scary agency that nobody wants to call up for advice. So by doing those little outreach tables, we sometimes connect staff who have already called in, and they can actually say, oh, hey, I spoke with you. You know, it makes it a very human touch. If you have any questions about our annual report, please feel free to reach out to us. There is an article in the back about the manuoku, which, as you know, is Honolulu's bird. When the Design and Print Center was helping us to design a logo that would represent who we are as an agency and what services we provide to the city. The manuoku centered above a compass with a North Star all seem to make sense. So please, enjoy the article and enjoy the annual report. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer. Thank you.
Okay, members, any questions? Councilmember Kyomoto.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. I
Yes.
noticed, and I know we're in fiscal year 2026, but in your current expenses from 2024 to 2025,
yes,
there was a large jump, and I don't recall, and maybe you explained this last year, but what was the reason for the big jump from 19,000 to the 74,000 in the current expenses? And then for this year, you're saying that it's going to just go up for that 2,700 for the commissioner travel.
Correct.
But I'm looking at your spreadsheet here, or your chart here, and it shows FY 2024 went from 19,681 to almost 75,000, and I was curious what the reason for that was.
Yeah. Okay. The only thing that we can think of is travel expenses. We did send 3 staff to a conference. I believe the conference expenses may have gone up. I know that travel costs have gone up.
55,000, that's the discrepancy. From almost 20,000 to 75,000 from one year to the next. And then this year, you show that it's just the 2,700 that you're asking, but there was a large jump.
I'm sorry, what year are you looking at?
Well, this is between 2024 to 2025, so I'm just trying to understand why that was this year. I know the jump is not as large, but I'm wondering how I missed that last year, actually, what the reason for that in current expenses.
I would have to get back to you
Okay.
on that. I'm not sure that we know what that increase was. I'd have to look at the fiscal year 24 numbers and get back to you.
Okay. I
Thank
would
you.
appreciate that because
Yes.
if that's the number that we should be closer to, I want to know how we're so far off from it right now.
Thank you for that question.
Thank
We'll
you.
get back to you on
Okay,
that.
thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Members, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we have come to the end of our, Councilmember Kiana?
Yes, I just have a,
yeah.
do you don't mind, not relating, thank you so much. I just have a process and
Yes.
scheduling question.
Yes.
The first is, so is Friday a catch-all day for agencies that, like parks that we don't finish? But is it your intent to be all day Friday?
No, so Friday is only departments that we don't get a chance to do Monday through Thursday.
Okay, for whatever reason.
For whatever reason. In this case, Director Thielen was feeling very terrible today. So.
And then Heart, of course, is separate. Heart is expected to be there. Okay, my second question is this. I don't know the format for all of the presentations, if they were given guidance, but you know, when Department of Emergency Management came up and I had to ask the questions on the total positions, each of the presentations seemed to have something about vacancies. And while helpful, it doesn't provide the context of the total staff. And the reason that's important is twofold. Some are heavily dependent on federal funding, so we would have no idea, right, unless the question is asked. And second, we wouldn't know the percentage of the vacancy vis-a-vis the total amount of staffing. And so I'm just wondering if that could be part of future presentations, because I don't want to just look at what the vacancies are. I want to, again, understand, because I have to tell you, several of us have asked repeatedly about the federal funding. It is going to be on a case-by-case basis. And strategically, those departments that are going to be disproportionately impacted, whether their federal counterpart is gone or the funding is dried up, is going to change their strategy moving forward. And I just think that, you know, we're going through the budget, and those are legitimate things for us to be concerned about, because we can't be just waiting in a vacuum to see what happens, yeah? I think agencies have to be a little more proactive and get, again, their own intelligence independently from just relying on the Hawaii congressional delegation, what they see on the news, and any direction they get from the managing director's office. So I just wanted to make that point. This was driven by them. This wasn't guidance that you had given.
So we sent a communication to all of the departments with some items in all their presentations, but to the point about the federally funded positions and the total number of positions, I don't think those were included. I think we're specifically honing in on the vacancy numbers.
Okay, got it. Okay, so then we'll just be asking it when they come along. But if anybody is listening out there and you haven't finished your presentations, it just would be good to come out with those numbers. Like she started off with the ethics. She started off in the beginning. And so it was all just good to throw it in, even if it's not in the presentation. Thank you.
Very good point. And we will have the opportunity to ask the departments a series of questions. And then if there are some overarching things that all departments should be answering, we can send out another budget communication as may be necessary. All right, any other comments? Okay, with that, we are adjourned for today, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. Hello, everyone. It's 3:20.